David O. Russell is the latest face of Hollywood's workplace abuse problem. The funny thing about this is they're underselling it in a way because of the niece allegations. But
It's definitely more than just a workplace abuse problem. And in the wake of the conversation about whether female directors are held to a double standard in comparison to male directors for misconduct or questionable behavior on set,
maybe for the sake of that discussion, we focus first on the stuff on set because that's where the comparisons would be with Olivia Wilde.
There are all but completely confirmed by video evidence allegations that David O. Russell has physically assaulted cast members, crew members,
and Christopher Nolan at an event.
Nolan. So he's also verbally abused people. He, I believe, called Lily Tomlin a C word on set.
So he called it female-related expletives in one of the articles that I read. They didn't want to get too into what that actually meant, but yes.
Yeah, which movie was that? That was
for not Silver Linings Playbook. That was for the one from 2004.
Okay.
No, that wasn't for American Hustle.
Yeah, so he's verbally abused cast members. At one point, he grabbed an extra and decked them to the floor.
It was for I Heart Huckabees. Sorry.
I Heart Huckabees? Yep. Okay, yeah, that was when he said that to Lily Tomlin. And the reason he did that to an extra actually is because the extra wasn't physically capable of throwing Ice Cube,
who's a pretty big dude. Ice Cube's a bulky.
Large, yeah.
Ice Cube is a bulky dude.
So he just had enough one day and decked this person.
He wanted to show him how to throw a guy. So he's like, I'll show you.
The funny thing is, I've seen more than a few TV shows parody this exact type of thing, where they're like, "Oh, don't do it that way," and then the director comes up and absolutely it's like you can't choke the guy that way. You got to choke him this way. And then the guy comes up to him, starts choking him.
Physical demonstration of the stunt. Yes.
And then they do the bit where he's choking him, and they don't realize that the guy's actually being choked, and the guy's trying to get out of it, and it's played for laughs. But this is not exactly a laughing matter.
Another situation, he put Christopher Nolan in a headlock at a Hollywood party,
which is very humiliating.
He was mad at him because he was trying to poach Jude Law onto The Prestige, which I was surprised to have actually seen that movie.
One of Nolan's
at the time
better earlier works.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like The Prestige?
Yeah, maybe I'm just not into those I don't know, Inception, Memento,
you didn't like
intellectually engaging films as much.
Well, that's Christopher Nolan's thing. That's what he loves that stuff. He's kind of that rare example of a director who's allowed to make stuff like that on the higher end of the budget scale.
Yeah,
they give him a lot of money to make movies that a lot of people don't understand. There's a great review that I watched for Tenet where the guy's he's like, just ignore the sci-fi elements, because when they were talking about the movie Tenet, he's like, think of it with James Bond with sci-fi elements, but just pretend the sci-fi elements don't exist because they don't make any sense. That's fine.
The plot twist in The Prestige I genuinely didn't see coming, but also I didn't care.
Yeah.
So he was trying to poach Jude Law for The Prestige when he was actually supposed to be in Three Kings, and because of that, he decided to put Christopher Nolan in a headlock at a party in front of a lot of people, and Christopher Nolan then relented and let go of Jude Law so that he could do David O. Russell's film.
So do you think that this is a double standard in Hollywood? There is that legend of the auteur film director who is obscenely rude on set, and he's got his diehard vision of what he wants to be. Michael Bay is known to be that way, at least as far as verbally being very unpolished, because when he wants something, he wants it. And he needs the shot to be done a certain way, and all the movies he makes cost a fortune to make. So he's he needs to get that point across to you, and he needs to get that point across to you quickly, and you don't always have time to be nice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's a bit of an understatement when you're talking about the incidents David O. Russell has gotten into with actors and crew members as well. I understand why the financial stakes of a film would cause someone stress and cause them to not act like themselves. But I think this is just a license that he feels he has to have outbursts at people and be violent because of the money involved. he has made a lot of very lucrative films, and interestingly, it seems that like in Hollywood, if you are a moneymaker and if you as a director are a brand name in and of yourself, more than even another movie star might be,
and there's directors like that,
then you're allowed to cross certain boundaries that other directors normally wouldn't. And there are less female directors that have reached that level of notoriety. Yeah. So naturally they don't end up in as many of these situations, or maybe women just wouldn't be inclined to act violently anyways.
There's a good question to be asked there. Like, perhaps it's because an Olivia Wilde just hasn't developed that pedigree yet, that she doesn't have the license to act that way. But there's also the question asked that females are less likely to be confrontational, and less likely to be outwardly hostile. So maybe it wouldn't work. But then you have to ask the question, like, of those movies, did they come out the way they did because of that behavior? I don't know if that can actually be answered, because you don't have, it's kind of a fool's question. You can't actually answer that question.
Russell is known as the actor's director, and actors kind of romanticize working under the supervision of someone who's unpredictable, who acts erratic, and that's seen as a merit of their art.
Which seems like that would make the situation worse, because then it kind of promotes that type of behavior.
Yeah, but maybe they would think like we work better under pressure, and it helps the actors bond when they're all undergoing the same stress.
Well, they said that they had no such incidents in the making of Amsterdam, but maybe he felt under the microscope. For
the one weird thing I read about from the making of Amsterdam is that Margot Robbie came in to do a table read at one point just with David O. Russell, and he was literally about to fall asleep or completely asleep the entire time. Mm-hmm. As she was doing this table read, he continually like recommended that she has a more relaxed tone, slower, quieter, every time that she like restarted. And then as he was falling asleep, nodding off at the table, she was like, "Do you want me to bring more energy to this?" And he's like, no, you're perfect. And she keeps going, and then until he is fully like knocked out and snoring. So he's obviously like a kind of an oddball guy.
That could have been a power trip, even. Like,
maybe, yeah.
Like literally read me to sleep because I want to have a weird type of control over you.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's even that thought out, like, or what his intentions were with that, but he's obviously kind of a strange guy. Yeah, and people respect his work because he seems to have like unconventional ways of I guess like making something great with resistance. I don't know.
And with
like,
more
friction
success.
he causes will help the product in the end.
Maybe.
That's the pitch, at least.
Yeah, because I think, like you mentioned earlier, disagreeableness, or like that men tend to be more, well, in the psychology realm, that disagreeableness, like Jordan Peterson's broken it down into a personality trait, and men tend to be more disagreeable than women. And what happens is when you're on set, like you were saying too, you're in a rush because you got 12 hours to shoot. You're probably spending like $300,000 a day by paying all the crew, the cast to be there. And if something's going wrong, they're costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
So you have a right to like spur the horse and be like, no, move or you're fired. But with power comes responsibility, and you can be.
I've heard that before.
Like if you're powerful, you can be mean, and still people will work for you because you're powerful, and you can make them money. Mm-hmm. So you have. Just because he is mean doesn't mean that that's what was making it better. Like being kinder may even make an even better product. But then you see like Stanley Kubrick, who was screaming at the woman playing in The Shining, and really making her cry on set, and got like the most real terror out of her because he was terrifying her behind the scenes.
Yeah. I question whether that behavior should be tolerated.
See,
I
wonder
for the sake of the art. Obviously, she chose to be there. She chose to keep this job, but
It's possible that the director would have to be like, look, I'm going to like, and they'll talk about this a lot of times when they go into this stuff, when they talk about this type of acting. It's like, look, I'm going to have to take you places you don't want to go mentally. If you don't feel like you can handle that, you can back out now. But then once you get started, just because you agreed to it doesn't necessarily mean you really understood what that entails. Yeah. And once it starts, you can't really pull out at that point. You're contractually obligated to finish this picture. It could be financially disastrous for you to just quit midway through. But then we get into this falls into that category of like, this is the murkiness of working in commercial art, right? Like, he's doing it for artistic purposes. The studio's doing it for financial purposes. The actor is doing it for a mixture of both.
The actors seem to be in it for Oscars.
Yes.
Mainly. And of course,
especially with the level of actor he's working with who are already financially secure and built their resumes up long before they don't need to do this role. They want to do this role.
Yeah, they're willing to undergo extreme distress for recognition.
Christian Bale seems to thrive on it, and they're even saying that he's worked with David O. Russell before, and that when he was getting in the face of Amy Adams on the set of American Hustle, he got into David O. Russell's face and said, "Look, stop being an asshole."
Yeah.
So like Bale seems to thrive on that type of chaotic work.
I think that's why Margot Robbie and John David Washington felt comfortable taking these roles because David O. Russell's history of violent and aggressive behavior is fully documented in public at this point, so they have that context going into it. They feel like Christian Bale can advocate for them or mediate between them and David O. Russell if he acts that way. But still, the worst we've heard about the making of Amsterdam is that table read incident, and Margot Robbie at one point called it like terrifying that they didn't know what they were going to film each day. She said actually that the three of them, Christian Bale, John David Washington, and her, immediately kind of clung to each other like, okay, are you scared? Because I'm scared. What do we do? Then you dive in head first and you have the time of your life. And Christian Bale's going like, don't worry, it's always like this. You never know what's going to happen when you go to work that day. And you really don't. And that's thrilling. So I can see how that would help them bond as a trio and really communicate their chemistry for the film, which was palpable.
Yes.
And that's what made it really worth watching.
My biggest attribution to the movie was that the chemistry of the three of them is infinitely better than the chemistry of John David Washington and Margot Robbie's chemistry on their own, in which they're supposed to be lovers in this movie. And for some reason, there's a magnetic and really inviting chemistry when they're all three together.
Yeah.
But when it's just them, it almost falls apart in a way. So maybe those scenes
that friendship chemistry is way stronger.
Yes. Like they're doing their scene and Christian Bale's not there. They're like, I wish he was here while they're like, could you make him bring him into the background while we're doing this so we feel safe?
He needs to cheerlead all of their romantic scenes, basically.
And it kind of speaks to like the really chaotic and uneven nature of filmmaking, and why as a profession it attracts people who might not be the most not emotionally stable people, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're inviting this type of uncertainty into their lives for the sake of the artistic process. Most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like based on sheer luck or maybe an evolution that David O. Russell has undergone in recent years personally. They didn't have to undergo the same level of chaos that he had inflicted in the past. Like,
he's mellowed with age.
On the set of Three Kings, that was over 20 years ago now, George Clooney was the one who personally witnessed him throwing that extra down to the floor, and he intervened and got into a feud with him, and what he concluded from that was that he never wanted to work with David O. Russell ever again, but that he still said, do I think he's tremendously talented, and do I think he should be nominated for Oscars? Yes. So maybe he thinks that level of like chaos and violence and uncertainty and really like actually unethical behavior, if we're thinking about it from just the workplace perspective, is worth it if you can make something great out of it.
It does make me wonder if they actually understand what it's like to be like the average everyday person who works in a normal work environment where throwing people down to the ground isn't something that you can just do and expect to get away with it.
Yeah, it's super high stress, the movie industry. I mean, especially when they used film, then it was like
you
super
run out
expensive to shoot. Even just to shoot for like 5 minutes was like $9,000 or something.
The closest you get to something like that now is stunts that require like something that they only have one or two of. Like if they have a car, they only have one or two cars, and they have to flip a car just the right way. They don't really have multiple opportunities to get that shot more than one or two times.
A lot of problems with extras is it can be anybody. They don't have to be like professional. They're just anybody goes to casting, Frontier, they sign up for extra work, they get called in the morning, they're like, go be part. And then what happens is they think, I'm going to be an actor in this movie now. Like, dude, you're an extra. Technically, you're not technically, I guess you're an actor, technically maybe, but you're not. The director doesn't think of you as an actor, doesn't want you to pull focus from the scene, wants you to be background noise. If you slow down the production even an inkling, you're fired. Get out. But apparently he just
fired.
Yeah, he's like, you're on the ground. I'm going to show you how to do it. He probably told him like 3 times what to do. The guy couldn't do it right. So finally he was just like, this is how you do it, and did it to him.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm looking at a picture of David O. Russell at the top, and he looks all smarmy and weaselly.
He does.
And then I scroll down to the video of him talking, and he looks awesome. Like, I would love to work with this guy. He looks super like good at what he does.
So it's one of those things that would you have thrived on that type of environment, or would you have preferred something more stable?
Well, it only times that ever happened to me that I did a commercial, a Dr. Pepper commercial, and with the House of Usher production company, and I had 2 directors. I had the director and the assistant director. We were driving up and down the PCH Highway 1 in California on the Pacific Coast. And the assistant director was trying to direct me, which is not what the assistant director's job is. The assistant director's job is to corral the actors, make sure everybody's in their place and everybody's on time. But for whatever reason, I had the director in one car on a walkie-talkie. I had the walkie-talkie next to me, and then I had the AD, the assistant director, in the car with me. And they were giving me conflicting direction. The director's like, put your arm up. The assistant director's like, put your arm down. And it was it was a horrible shoot. It turned out terribly. But I think as I got more confident and just better at understanding how to make things work fast, it never happened again. I've had just fantastic, even with like Jerks, they like me now because I'm better at it. But I understand, like for people that are new and figuring it out, like top Hollywood directors do not have time or desire to work with people like that.
There's too much money. There's too much risk. There's too much going into the production. And it's like, that's why you get the outbursts like Christian Bale on the set of Terminator Genesis.
He clearly thinks that's acceptable behavior. And then Dan Schneider, too. Like, he did this same aggressive verbal abuse to children. Yeah. Like, they just act this way, and they believe that.
Thank you.
You know what's funniest and like actually hypocritical about this is that Hollywood expects in their own circles for you to evaluate your own risks and at your own discretion take these jobs and basically grow thicker skin if you can't handle it. But then what they preach to all of us is the thinnest skin philosophy of life possible, that we should all be easily offended by like microaggressive comments, and that they whine about being cyberbullied, and they whine about negative reviews, and they try to censor people. They label us as trolls and bots.
I was thinking about it
like
yesterday.
It doesn't. There's a dissonance there.
They see that theirs is a higher calling, so that they can do that, but you can't because you're just a pleb. You're just part of the unwashed masses, so you have to behave this way. Well, they get to act literally as the upper class, the ivory tower, if such a thing existed for overpaid celebrities. Though again, I will make that argument that they're not overpaid. They're paid what they're worth based on the money that they the return on their investment. Like a lot when people talk about athletes being overpaid, I'm like, no, people still pay a lot of money to go watch sports. So technically, they're paid what they're worth. But
they think they can verbally or physically rough each other up, but never receive negative feedback of any degree from the unwashed masses.
Do you think they were like that before, or do you think that social media just exposed it to people.
They've always been narcissists who can't take criticism.
Yes.
Like abuse. They used to beat women. I mean, men in general used to beat women till like the 1950s. I think they were way more aggressive and angry.
The actors?
Back in the directors. Back
Oh, well,
I'm
talking. We're talking about the actors now. Do you think the actors were always so thin-skinned?
I mean, they're thick-skinned when it comes to their wallets being on the line.
Yeah, well, yeah. Funny how that works, right?
It's interesting.
And then what happened with his niece? Do you want to tell everyone what happened with his niece? Just because.
Okay, so
speaking of Hollywood,
aside from on-set behavior, there was a police report filed in 2011 by the niece of David O. Russell. And it alleged that he groped her under the shirt on her breasts. And this was, I believe, when this niece was 19 years old. And the context is, I was surprised to find out from 2011, things have changed so much. This individual is transgender. Okay. And this incident followed a discussion of how this person was taking estrogen. Thank you.
Woo!
This person was taking estrogen to grow breasts, and I guess that was what he considered permission to touch them. And
his own niece.
Yes, his own niece.
Totally normal.
And so it seems that this niece immediately filed a police report, but the police said they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't witness the incident take place, and basically you're SOL. And then when in the police report, David O. Russell is recorded having justified this. He fully admitted that he did this, and he justified it, saying that his niece was acting very provocative and seductive to him.
What the frick? Dude, these people, dude.
This is public record. This is a matter of public record. And now it's making a lot more sense why the A-list actors who are still working with him, singing his praises, are definitely holding us, all of the unwashed masses, to a different standard than the one they hold themselves to.
Yeah.
And I know that Margot Robbie was receiving criticism for working with David O. Russell in particular because she starred in Bombshell. It's framed as like a dramatized retelling that they try to stay accurate to reality, that exposes corruption and culture of abuse at Fox News, that you had to do sexual favors to ascend in that company. And like, I think Charlize Theron played Megyn Kelly in it. It was a pretty big film at the time.
Funny too, because you can just tell that Charlize Theron would be excited, and I feel like Margot Robbie would do it because she liked the role, and Charlize Theron would do it because she wants to stick it to the man.
Yeah, there are obviously like mixed motivations, and Margot Robbie is very smart about like when she talks.
She knows when to shut up
about films.
She knows what to say, when to say it, and when to not comment on. She's my favorite actress working, I think, in Hollywood right now, as far as somebody who is working at that top level of the industry, while being able to remain not perfect but fairly magnanimous in her approach to how she deals with the role she takes, her opinions on things.
And when she's asked leading questions by the media, she is really good at pivoting to just talk about her role, about the film, about the story, and the experience of filming it, not about the social impacts she's hoping these movies will have.
Which everybody is sick to death of hearing about.
So she's smart for not responding to the criticism about working with David O. Russell, but it is a valid point to bring up, because it doesn't just apply to her. It's I guess,
do you think she wanted to do it?
Wokeness for thee, but not for me?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it feels like. And like, the general public is not violent, aggressive, hateful toward women or any of these marginalized groups. Yet in Hollywood, they expect everyone to have the same like thick skin, unfazed mentality, unshocked. You for the sake of art, you cannot be shocked or offended by anything.
Yep.
But it's a different standard when it comes to the rest of us. So this quote from Lily Tomlin, after I Heart Huckabees, and this hack of Sony's emails happened in 2014, but in 2016, then Lily Tomlin commented on her experience.
That was that long ago.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, the Sony hack.
The emails claimed that she was called the crudest word imaginable in front of actors and crew.
Unless you're British, then they use that word all the time.
But she basically defended it, saying it was just crazy stuff. We were always doing something, and then we'd get manic and crazy, and I just flipped out on him, then he flipped out on me. You know, stuff goes on. Like, it's so easy to say that when you're in your own cabal and everyone's comfortable with each other. It's a big exclusive club. You're not in it. Yep. But you have to also buy their products and be a happy little consumer, and you will be happy.
Yep.
Well, that shows me that Lily Tomlin started it. At least according to Lily, she got in his face, and then he responded by calling her.
But
it's impossible to know what really happened.
And if that happened now, it wouldn't matter, because even if she got in his face first, he's supposed to both treat all women equally while also deferring to them and not engaging, even if they engage with him. Mm-hmm. So
like, returning to the point that Olivia Wilde made regarding all of the drama about Don't Worry, Darling. All of that drama was way lower stakes. It was basically like middle school girls whispering about each other compared to,
as they want to do,
decking an extra onto the floor, compared to calling someone the C word.
Yeah, but is he
screaming in people's faces?
But is he sleeping with his with his actresses though? Like, she was sleeping with Harry Styles.
Even if he did, would we know about it?
Would we know about it? That's
probably not. He probably has.
So there is probably a bit of a double standard here, but we'll never know until we get
vindication for Olivia Wilde. I never thought I would see the day
until we get a female director with that level of pedigree.
I don't think we will, though.
No, I don't think so either. I think that they will sabotage themselves and not elevate the right ones. For every they didn't rein in Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman 2. They let her write and direct when she's clearly a better director than she is a writer. Like, they gave her all free range to do whatever she wanted in that movie, and it showed. Whereas in Wonder Woman, the movie, the first one, she did a fantastic job of directing something that was generally somebody else's concept and idea, and they let her run wild in the second one. We're not going to get a strong female director that's at that level for a while, because what they're going to do is they're going to continue to flood the market with substandard products, not giving them great material to work with. They're going to helm Star Wars on television. They're going to helm Marvel on television. They may helm Marvel films as part of dual director teams that will work on projects that, let's face it, are directed by Marvel. They're not directed by directors. They're not going to get that opportunity. It's going to take a smaller film that has a larger cultural impact, but there's going to be pushback against it now because people feel like it's being shoved down their face. There's absolutely things going on right now with diversity quotas. We want this many people on our set that are this race, this many people on our set that are this gender. And it's going to poison people against it. You're going to go in to watch it, and you're going to automatically think, before even starting it, you're going to have to be proven wrong rather than proven right, so that you're going to assume it's going to be bad, and they're going to have to prove that you're wrong, rather than you going into it neutral.
With Amsterdam, it just seems egregiously hypocritical, just because they can make these overtures to being anti-Nazi and pro-democracy and pro-love and kindness and anti-hate.
Yes.
But David O. Russell is...
But it takes a lot of hate to make that message work, apparently.
Yeah. He's using hate to spread love. Okay, sure.
So it's like
to be our school teacher.
Yeah.
He's hitting us with a ruler and saying, like, be more loving, be more kind.
The husband, it's the 1950s husband who hits his wife because he
Backhand
loves her.
Across the face of the general public.
Yes.
My guess is that Russell, if he was here, he'd be like, why don't you direct a Hollywood movie and show me how it's done? Because he's like got his job on the line, and if an extra is in there screwing around and can't get a ball on the ground, like that's like, dude, get out. You're not gonna cost me $6 million because you can't figure out your own life. Like, get out of here. And I've only heard of one instance where he threw someone on the ground. I haven't heard of this violence thing. If Lily Tomlin got in his face
like
and then
audio,
if Lily called him a name and then he responded by calling her name, that just happens on, like, that's on set. It's high emotions, high stakes. Two people that know each other pretty well yelling at each other.
Well, there's the
crowd's
headlock
gonna be
incident,
like, what's
too.
the headlock incident?
With putting Christopher Nolan
That's
in a
weird.
headlock.
That's weird that Jude Law agreed to do a different movie, yet somehow a headlock between the directors is going to get Jude Law to agree now to do another thing that he didn't want to do. Like, how did they?
Well, Christopher
That's
Nolan's
ridiculous.
British.
Stuff
He has more.
A director can lay claim to an actor as their intellectual property, it seems,
Says
for a limited amount of time.
Scorsese and DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Right? So. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.